The awards-winning Handmaid's Tale returns for its third season tomorrow. I'm Matt Noble, joined here with Bradley Whitford, who plays Commander Joseph Lawrence in the dystopian drama. And this season, he's become a regular. Bradley, what was it like getting the promotion, and what can we expect from season 3?
I was absolutely thrilled being able to be on this show, and I felt like I was doing. I'm lucky. I've had a lot of amazing experiences. I don't get intimidated, but I felt like I was doing a guest shot on Godfather 2 or something. I was absolutely thrilled to be able to become part of the regular cast. This is. I think this show is one of those generational achievements. I think that Lizzie is giving the performance of a generation. I always joke with her that she's doing Sophie's Choice, the series. She is placed in unspeakable emotional horror relentlessly. And unfortunately, the show, with a lot of what's going on in the world, has a powerful message of warning, and unfortunately, too much resonance. So it was a real honor to be entrusted with a part in it.
Mm. And what is that move up in season 3? You're going to have an expanded role?
Yeah, well, people who watch this show get very mad.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people, this isn't much of a spoiler, but she ends up, I end up being her commander this year, and it's a fascinating relationship.
Yeah, I guess your character in season 2 was quite ambiguous at times. There were incredible moments of darkness, but particularly in the season final, some sort of hope shone through for your character. What's it like approaching such an ambiguous character?
Well, I honestly, it's truly one of the most fascinating acting experiences I've had. There are so many. There's so much difficulty with this guy. There's so much contradiction and complexity, and he's not in a static place emotionally, morally. He is constantly in play, and I think is intentionally very hard to read. And it becomes a very interesting new kind of acting experience, which really sort of emphasizes allowing yourself to go wherever it takes you rather than sort of executing your idea of it. And that's what's really exciting. It is amazing to be doing this with Lizzie, who I met when she was 17, and was this wonderful young actor, and now I get to be with her again, and she's given the performance of a generation and is the absolute uh, um, creative touchstone for everybody. For Bruce, who's writing this, she is a real executive producer of this. She's involved with script development, script notes. She is involved with how we're going to stage it. She knows what the lenses are. And it's amazing to have met someone when they're this young kid acting, and to happen upon them not that long after, and they are a fully mature artist firing on all cylinders. It's really a joy.
Yeah, it's funny. She started as a guest on The West Wing, and you started as a guest on The Handmaid's Tale.
On shows, and you sort of become aware that that's where they're kind of taking a little test drive with a guest shot, for understandable reasons. You don't know. It's not even a judgment on your ability, but you don't know if the camera. It's we don't know what we're doing. It's alchemy, uh, and you want to see if it's working.
Mm.
Before you buy the car.
And you talked about that sort of like challenge in the he's very in play your character, and he's not fixed in one sort of moral or position. Like, do you as an actor need to know where he ends up landing, or can you just play it in the moment of where that character is?
You know, uh, One of the joys of doing a television show as opposed to a movie is you're discovering it as you're doing it. I have some ideas of where he could potentially end up. I don't want to know that much. Um, and honestly, I don't want Bruce to know that much. Um, I think it's. We were at the UN yesterday talking with people who deal with women's issues in situations where there is horrible misogyny and oppression, and with refugee situations. And in order to do service to June's journey, which is the whole point of everybody from Bruce all the way down to the assistant prop master, is to do justice to June's journey navigating, uh, this dystopian nightmare that is all too relatable right now.
Mm.
Um, and one thing they were talking about at the UN is people react in very inconsistent, unreadable ways when they're operating in a system. Probably the biggest parallel would be, a place like North Korea, and they can be very unreadable. And self-preservation um, is often a bottom line for them, which can constrain their better angels. And this guy is wrestling with it. I think he has tremendous regret about his part in creating Gilead. At the same time, I think he feels very defensive. He's aware of some of the consequences of what he has created, but from his point of view, it's chemo. You know, I was trying to save the world. I know this is brutal. I know it's difficult, but it's necessary. Is sort of the rational armor that he wraps himself in. But at other times, particularly through his genuine love of his wife, who's been destroyed by this experience, he's able to recognize the horror of what he's created. It is, again, it's a fascinating acting experience because it is, the camera goes on, and part of it is that I get to discover this guy in Lizzie's eyes. Um, and she's one of the most interesting people I've ever acted with in my life. And I don't know if she feels this way, but I feel like there's an unspoken fuck it, chuck it that goes on when we hear action, and uh, the object is to not try and execute your performance, but to try and discover it while it's happening. So it's fascinating.
Mm. Can you think of a particular scene, particularly in season two, which I guess you can talk a bit more about, where um, you know this chuck it, fuck it moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's really before. um, well, it happens first. When I meet Emily, um, uh, uh, it was very difficult to read, and to understand this guy and to know where he should go, and how to do justice to it. And it was acting with her that I realized, oh, all these contradictions are exactly the point. Um, and I think it's, I think a lesser writer than Bruce on a lesser show, a character like this, would have been, you know, at first a bad guy and then have some sort of epiphany and be an unmitigated, unconflicted great guy. And that would be a disservice to the complexity of the experience that June is trying to navigate.
Are there lighter moments on set, or is it a very intense, draining experience?
Uh, it is, I guess, it is very bizarre, but it is one of the loveliest uh, sets that I have ever been on. There is a lot of irreverence on the set, which probably is compensating uh, for for a lot of the dark material. Lizzie is not someone who, when she is faced with dealing with a particularly emotionally vulnerable moment, she doesn't need a quiet set. She doesn't need you to clear it. She's and in a weird way, I think it's the key to her being able to go to the phenomenal emotional vulnerability, that place that June is so often placed in. It, I, I think there's a certain distance we get from the horror of this material by not um, uh, by not taking the acting process too seriously, if that makes any sense.
Mm. Yeah, you talked a bit how, particularly given the current political climate and times, the show's particularly relevant and apt. The West Wing, when it was on, was also at an interesting time politically for a lot of its run, with the Iraq War and Guantanamo Bay, and particularly some people felt a bit sort of not particularly encouraged by the political process at that time. What do you think's a better antidote to challenging political times, like the warning sign of The Handmaid's Tale or the inspiration of The West Wing?
I'm not sure what is most effective. I think they're both necessary. Um, I am always cognizant of the fact that while what we do occasionally can have a cultural and political impact, I actually think I, I worry that people think that that is enough. That look, Will and Grace, um, I think made a big difference, but we needed a law to change, and we needed a Supreme Court to uphold it. And I think depending on culture, or thinking culture is the end of the process as an antidote to things which disturb you politically, is a danger. Um, I think it needs to be, politics is actually the way you create your moral vision, and culture helps, but it doesn't help you if you have a pre-existing condition in the United States. You actually need a law. If you told me when I got this part, which was not so long ago, that several states would be proposing and passing laws which punish a woman who is raped for not carrying the child to term more harshly than you would punish the perpetrator of the rape, I would say that you were some, liberal aluminum hat conspiracy theorist, and that was never going to happen. We're not living in Gilead, but the most disturbing scenes to me are the flashbacks where you see these moments where June suddenly can't get money. This year we're dealing with refugee issues and separation issues, and it's extraordinary to me that in the United States we are, separating mothers from their children. Families are being separated, and Um, Not enough, we're sitting here doing publicity for a TV show instead of stopping everything we're doing and stopping that. And I think the show is a cautionary tale about that kind of incremental disintegration of norms and freedoms.
Yeah. What do you think the likelihood there is of an aspirational tale returning and The West Wing being rebooted?
Well, I'll be quite honest.
Yeah.
In general, I think there's a very healthy fear of returning to something that I think we all look back on with such joy and familial pride. I always say you want to get out before your banana turns brown, which I think we did successfully. But it's a weird moment where we all love that experience. We're a very close group. Um, you know, if Aaron found a way into a story, we'd all be there in a second. Um, but I think you don't want to sully what that experience was. But we serve at the pleasure of Aaron Sorkin.
I spoke to Richard Schiff about a month ago, and he said, "Don't hold your breath."
Yeah. No, listen. In general,
Yeah.
I just think there is this constant, economic. If you're branding, a new Apple streaming service, I'm sure, just economically to have that brand and that event happen there, it keeps the question in the air. I think Aaron very wisely keeps going, no.
Yeah, and you don't want that economic interest to be the driver behind it. I guess.
Right. I don't think Aaron would do it for economic reasons.
No.
We couldn't still be working in the White House, for God's sake,
Yeah.
Be like a walker and talk.
Yeah. Yes. Bradley, in Julie Hill's first episode of The West Wing, you turn to his character Charlie and you say that feeling
you never get over it.
Yeah, you never get over it. Doesn't go away. Is there a particular moment from that series that just doesn't go away in particular from you?
Yeah, it actually involves Dulé when we were shooting Noel. Yo-Yo Ma came and was the most spectacular ray of humility and sunshine, and walked into this room full of background people holding his cello up saying, does anybody want to play it? And handing this $7 million cello to be passed through the crowd because he wants to break down the walls between classical music and the public. And at one point, after he finished playing, the cameras went off and he started improvising on his cello. And then Dulé, who is one of the greatest tap dancers in the world, a lot of people don't know that, but he started in a show, Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk, and is truly one of the greatest tap dancers in the world. And Dulé started tapping and improvising with Yo-Yo Ma, and it absolutely felt like church.
Oh, wonderful. Bradley, last time we did an interview like this, you had a gorilla impression for us. Do you do any other animals?
I do a dog vomiting.
Really? How does that work?
I don't think it'll work. I don't think it'll work with this camera. But
okay. Oh man.
And it's very long. But at some point, if I get to Australia, I will do it. It takes a long time.
Okay, so it's a real method acting. You need to really.
It's a deep commitment.
Yeah, deep commitment. Well, Bradley, Handmaid's Tale. Not many people are competing for the Emmys this year for the Handmaid's Tale, but they've squeezed you in with those hanging episodes from season 2 in
Yes.
in the guest actor race. You won the Emmy for guest acting for Transparent in the comedy series. I've got a picture of you, us on that night when you won.
Oh, that stupid hat, because I had my Humphrey haircut.
Yeah. Anyone watching this, they can go to goldderby.com where they can make their predictions for the Emmy Awards and compete against the experts, editors, and other fans to see if you're the smartest procrastinator in Hollywood. And before you do, you can click subscribe if you want more updates for videos with other hot Hollywood stars. Thanks for chatting with us, Bradley.
My pleasure.
Always good to talk.
Hopefully I'll see you at the Emmys.